Meeting to order here at a 6:02 p.m. If I have a hammer here, I'd bang the desk. Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda? Everyone, if you look at that, and if someone could make a motion to approve the agenda, it'd be great.
I
I'll
move
move
that.
to,
Go ahead.
I'll move to approve the agenda.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
This
I'll
is John. Second it.
Okay, John seconded. Any discussion on the agenda or changes that need to be made? Hearing none, then we will move forward. All those in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Okay, no naysayers. So we got an agenda that's approved here. If everyone could take a look at the minutes, hopefully you've got a copy of them there, and maybe if you had an opportunity to read them ahead of the time, that would be great. So if you could take a look at the minutes, and when someone is ready, we can have a motion to approve the minutes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, we got a motion to approve the minutes. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Got a second? Any discussion? Okay, hearing none then. All those in favor? Oh,
Was that Brenda that it moved?
yeah, Brenda was the mover.
Sometimes my Zoom doesn't keep up with the pace. So, okay, thanks.
No problem. All those in favor of the agendas, the minutes. I'm sorry. Reading the wrong line. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed, say nay. Okay, we have no nays, so we have the approval of the minutes. The next item is public comments. You can have up to 2 minutes per participant. If you have any comments you want to make.
Alex, if I may, for those public that are here and would like to comment, if you could please use the participants feature and raise your hand, and then we can call on people to give you your time for your public comment.
You've got 2 minutes, you can keep going. Okay. It's me. I hope they don't feel this meeting is for the dogs. Okay. All right. Hearing none then, if it's agreeable to everyone, we'll move forward to item number 5, principals report. Okay, Amy, you've got the floor.
All right. So I wanted to start off with a really good thing. This is a screenshot from our last staff meeting on Wednesday, and it was the end of a pretty difficult working session where we had some difficult conversations, but we had a lot of fun at the same time. So this is us, and I just wanted to remind the board that there are some amazing individuals making this happen every single day. So I'd like to give them a big kudos. This really is an incredible staff, and the collective energy of this staff is just remarkable. So I've been at Highland for a long time, and this is probably the most cohesive staff that I've been part of. So I wanted to give a big shout out to them. And then moving forward, see here, the principals report. Here we go, too many windows open as usual. And here we are. Okay, try to go into the presenter mode. So this is our their principals report to the APC. I wanted to start off with some other celebrations. We, after student conferences in October, or as part of that, we had a list of questions that we asked parents and students. And some of the highlights from those, from the question of what is something you are proud of from the students. Just take a look at this list of what the student responses were and look at how diverse it is. I mean, we've got lots of comments about math. We've got lots of comments about science, feeling good about progress in language arts and social environments and Alaska studies. So we've got a lot of really great things going on, and this is coming right from our students. So I wanted to share that with you. I also wanted to share with you all that I have had the opportunity this week to do 3 staff observations, informal observations in classrooms. And again, it's just remarkable things are going on. And it really is amazing to see how the staff has adapted to distance learning and has really turned it into the new norm. And that's something that we talked about, just the shift in our mindset from last year at this time, where we might have been thinking, how could we really do a blended learning model and support students when they're not at school? And now, a year later, this shift has completely turned to, okay, so we know how to do this distance. Now, how are we going to incorporate students face to face? So we'll get there in just a moment. But I've got one more great thing to celebrate, and that is alumni in our community. Mr. Robinson received an email from a former Highland student who graduated 2 years ago. And he is working with Seeds of Change in Spenard. And this is a student that I personally feel might have very easily slipped through the cracks at another school. He's very, very sweet person, very quiet, didn't want a lot of attention. And it's been so neat to see him really excel and to share this with Mr. Robinson. So I was going to show part of this video to you, but it's something that Seeds of Change put on YouTube, all about lasagna garden beds. And it's in the video, there are many Highland students, former Highland students and Highland alumni who are working for this group. And they're doing really good things in Midtown and Spenard area. So rather than show you the movie tonight, for the sake of time, I will email that out to you. So if you'd like to see the link, you can definitely check that out. Another thing I was hoping to share with you was some poetry from Miss Doherty's poetry class, which is one of the classes I got to observe this week. But maybe that's a little spoiler alert for our next meeting in December. Okay. Next up, a big part of my world right now is trying to figure out how to get students back in our building and in a safe way, and in a way that not only is safe, but feels safe, because those are similar but different. So the Anchorage School District has asked that every single school create a re-entry plan, and there are 7 sections in that plan. And I've gone through the plan, and even though it has been submitted as a final submission, it is a working document. So as we make changes to that, we will be changing the document, and then that will be updated real time on ASD's website. So I wanted you all to be aware of some of the features of our re-entry plan. So again, this was submitted, the due date was Monday, but I got one in early, so that was done last week. Some of the big changes include a student drop-off and pickup procedure, which we've never really had. It's been pretty vague and open. So what we're proposing is that the doors would open for students at 7 a.m. if they needed to come that early, for up to 50 students until 7:45. And then we would have students waiting in the commons until we've got 25 students in the commons, or probably be 30. And then the next 20 would go into a classroom. And the idea there is that it'll be easier to supervise that number of students. So as opposed to having them all in the commons together. And that's about what we would have by 7:40 or 7:45. We'd probably have 50 students in the building. The bulk of the people arrive between 7:45 and 8:15. And so what we would do is have a sign up process for those 50 students and then a wait list for students that needed to be dropped off before then. And we'll have a sign in process where the students walk in and we've got their names on a clipboard and we tell them where to go. At 7:45, when students arrive, they'll be sent directly to class. And the idea is we'd have a soft start. So attendance wouldn't be taken until 8:15, but that students would have a place, they'd be in their class. The first class of the day is either elective or advisory. And so then we would probably extend that first period class by 5 or 10 minutes to make sure that there's enough instructional time for student drop off. And then for student pickup, we would release it with 2 different doors, through 2 different doors. Currently, we only have 1 exit that students can use. So we would have 2 exits and we'd have parameters around that. It's tough because we don't have buses, but it's also nice that we don't have buses because we don't have, a vehicle of 50 students showing up at the same time. So that helps, but that also does mean that we have students lingering after school, after hours. So we'll need to work closely with families to make sure that students have rides to and from at appropriate times. Another feature, I guess, I'm not sure, another part of this plan is passing period. We will, typically we've had 5-minute passing period between each class, giving students a chance to use the restroom and get a drink of water and socialize with their friends before they go to class. So it's not really a passing period, it's more of a break because it does not take more than 35 seconds to walk completely around the building. So what we would do is essentially have that passing period be a true passing period where students go from one class to the next. There will be no lingering in the halls. There will be no bathroom breaks during passing period. And we would all move in one direction in the building. So even if you need to go to the one classroom to the left, you're going to have to go to the right and go all the way around the building, which isn't always a bad thing to get a little more movement. And then we would have bathroom monitors. The reason we don't want bathroom use during the passing period is because we can only have 4 people in the bathroom at a time. And so what we would like to do instead is offer a bathroom break during class because teachers sometimes need to take care of things too. So during each class would have a set time that they would be allowed out in the hall to take a break, 5 to 10 minutes, where students can use the restroom and take a lap or 2 and walk quietly in the halls. Another feature to this plan is having student sanitizing stations outside of classrooms and then also cleaning in the classroom. So there would be like a 2-minute cleaning session at the end of every class and then also at the beginning of every class. We also would like to have a reboot room, which will probably be in the current counselor's office, which is vacant. And then an isolation room, which is actually mislabeled. It should be called the nurses annex. This will be in room 19, which is Mr. Birmingham's room. It's not being used by students. So this would be a place where any student feeling or experiencing symptoms or reporting something that hadn't been previously reported, they would move to the nursing annex. And then if a student needed to leave early because of symptoms or because of new information, we would use the back door that goes through what's lovingly called the cage, so that students wouldn't walk through the whole school. They would go to the nurse, say, I'm not feeling well. The nurse would take them to the annex, which would be a place where they could lie down, and the nurse would have a chance to call home and arrange a ride home for that student. And there's more to come on that piece as well. And then the last bit that I wanted to point out is that parent communication through all of this is going to be critical. We are hoping to put together a student contract for parents to sign, letting them know how serious this is and how serious we take this. And, we don't want students touching other students' masks or removing their mask and coughing on someone as a joke, because this is a serious matter. So again, we want everyone to feel safe and we want everyone to be safe. So this is all when we're face to face. And the question is, when will that happen? And there are no firm answers yet. For Anchorage School District, the elementary schools are still planning to start up on January 4th, face to face. Secondary is to be determined. And we have some level and some degree of autonomy being a charter school. So one thing that I feel very strongly about and that I would love to open to discussion is for our start date to align with the beginning of a quarter. I feel that starting anytime besides the beginning of a quarter, like mid-quarter or even a couple of weeks into a quarter, is really disjointed for both students and staff. Staff need to be able to plan for their instruction, and if it's distance, it will be different than if it's face-to-face. And I feel that distance is working overall for us, and that we're doing a pretty good job identifying those students that it's not working for and trying to help them. So one thing that I would ask the board to discuss this evening, or maybe if it's not this evening, it could be maybe a committee could be formed for the reentry plan, and we could meet again, is to consider Highland Academy not starting outside of the beginning of a quarter. So what that would mean is if ASD's secondary ed decided to start up February 1st, that we would say, well, the board has decided that we wouldn't start until after third quarter, at the beginning of fourth quarter. So that is something that I would propose to the APC, to you, to get approval or disapproval on. I would love for that to be discussed. And then part of that would be allowing small group work for our high needs students. And by high needs, I mean academic, I mean physical, I mean mental and emotional health. And also just, yeah, the technology piece has been challenging for some students. So what that would be is 6 to 10 students who we know are coming in on any given day. And it might be 5 days a week. An individual student might be 3 days a week, and then another is 2 days a week. But they would work in the commons under the direct supervision of myself and or Ms. Crosby. And that wouldn't start until Q3, although we have reached out to 2 students thinking that we might be able to sort of pilot this in the or before then, but neither of them are willing to take that risk with COVID. And then just so you know, there's a lot of information, so stop me if you need me to stop. But we've got 2 staff members currently working in the building every day. And then if there are other staff members who need to work in the building, they're checking in with me first to let me know, just because we've got telework agreements and most of us are working from home in order to reduce the overlap with one another. So we've got Miss Doherty is our building liaison, I guess you could call her. And so she has been given an addendum to be there every morning. She's there at 7 o'clock and she's usually there till 3 or 3:30. And she helps us when students or parents need to get in and get materials. And so she's been really helpful, making sure that the building is still somewhat accessible. Okay, and then another question that we asked after student conferences was if we were able to offer a true blended learning program, what would you choose? Would you choose to stay home if you can stay home, or would you choose to send your child to school? 43% of the, I would say 99.5% people that we spoke with, of those 43% said they would keep their children home if that was still an option. So we want to plan for 100% for when we are back face to face, because we want to make sure, that would still be an option. For those students that are saying they would stay home, we would ask them to commit to a quarter. But then, obviously if they need to come in, they could come in, but that way we can sort of manage who's going to be in the building when and make sure that we are set up for that number of students. Are there questions so far about this?
Amy, in the event that you do get face-to-face going, is there a provision in place that if someone does among the group test positive, what the next actions would be?
Yes, thank you for asking. That is section 7 of the plan. And Nurse Laura and I are working on that. There are a lot of procedures and policies already put in place by the Anchorage School District. And so we'll be following those. There is a document that is called the Administrator's COVID Resource document, and it's got so much. It's incredible. I've never seen a document with so many links to other documents and documents embedded within documents. So they've done a really good job organizing that. And so yes, we will be immediately responding to students and communicating within the guidelines of FERPA when we do have a positive case. And yes, there's a set procedure for that. And it's even though school is not in, I mean, it's in session, but even though we're not face to face, we still get reports from families that they've got positive test results. So we know right now of 3 families who have children who've had positive tests, and those have all been reported to ASD. There's a very strict reporting policy, and we've been following that. And in fact, Nurse Laura and I were just on the phone working through some of those details. So yes, we when we're face to face, there will be mandatory quarantines and mandatory testing as needed. Did that answer your question, Alex?
Oh, yeah, very good.
Great. And those school plans will go live in, I think we've been told 2 to 3 weeks. Some of us are still making some final changes. So you can see all of the elementary schools plans. They are all live on ASD's website. There's a link called Back to School. And in the Back to School, one of the very first buttons that pops up is find your school's health and safety plan. And so you can go through and check out all the different schools, and they're all in the same template. So it's nice that they're all pretty consistent. You read through those. Other questions?
Yeah, my question, Amy, is, so the choice is either you go to school, brick and mortar every day, or you're distance with the option, if you're high needs, you might have a small group. So it's not part of the student group would have an online course and then they'd come in for other courses. It's either they come or they stay home, correct?
Yeah, yes. The small group is only when we're in distance delivery. So that wouldn't be a face-to-face. So yeah. So what we would say is if you're committing to keep your child home, then please commit to that through the quarter. We recognize that 57% of our community wants to come back in the building. And so, we want to make it safe for those, as safe as possible. So if we can keep 43% home, we're willing to do that to make sure that the blended learning can take place. So the 57%, then we recognize that there will be some who will need to quarantine for 2 weeks. And so even of those 57%, we recognize that we won't have 100% attendance, that our attendance will probably be a lot lower than expected. We also feel—
Amy,
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That's okay.
This is Jim. I had a question about the starting on the quarter. Has there been any talk or consideration of, and I understand the need to kind of prepare for a smooth transition from distance to online, but has there been, distance to in person, but has there been talk of maybe doing just an asynchronous week to kind of give kids, things to work on at home, but give teachers a chance to kind of prepare to have the kids back sooner rather than having to wait till the quarter?
Yeah, we have talked about doing another, I'm going to use the term again, soft start, where maybe the first day is just a teacher day. Like, let's say the first day is Monday, and that's teachers only. The second day is only sixth graders. And then maybe the third day is seventh and eighth graders, and the fourth day is ninth and 10th, and then the fifth day is 11th and 12th. And just in the idea that we're working in our advisory groups, and we're just getting used to being around this many people again, because a lot of us have not been around as many people as we will be when we're back face to face. So there is that's not really opposed to waiting to start at the beginning of a quarter. That was just that was our idea when secondary was planning to start back up in January 4th, but that has changed. So that answers your question. That's not in lieu of starting at the beginning of a quarter, but we would like to ease people in. That doesn't mean it couldn't be. It just, that wasn't part of the conversation.
I have a question. So for this, would it look like, because I think Jim was mentioning asynchronous, so would it be the students at home are hearing the same things that's being taught in the classroom to the students in the classroom, or is that correct? Okay.
Yes,
That's what
the
I thought.
question is when they hear what's going on in the classroom. So I'm not sure if we'll be able to, I know what our bandwidth is, and I know that we can have 11 Zoom sessions being hosted at the same time, but we won't be able to have, I don't think we'll be able to have students Zooming in the building when they're face to face. So that will be a little bit limited. But so there's been talk about doing like pre-recorded lessons or recording the lesson and then posting it on Empower afterwards. But there might be some days when we can do a complete synchronous, like there are 10 students in a classroom and 10 students Zooming in. And the PTSO has been fabulous in giving us and purchasing us smart pens and microphones and headsets and cameras, document cameras. So we're pretty well set up. We might still need a few more cameras. We kind of joked at the staff meeting about a GoPro. Teachers could have GoPros. But then the other thing is teachers have access to a second computer, so they can have their Zoom computer, their recording computer, and then their computer that they need for face-to-face instruction with students. So that was the bulk of our work on Wednesday was trying to identify by content area what the biggest challenges would be for blended learning when we've got half of our students at home and half of our students face to face. How do we teach both with and honor the learning, the teaching and learning for both of those? And there are definitely some challenges.
I was speaking with an educator at North Pole Elementary this week. So obviously working with younger students, but they had that plan of being able to offer a little bit of everything. Certainly for a second grade instructor, there was a lot of challenges that she was encountering with that. But it may be worthwhile having conversations with other educators who have tried this, as well as those who have gone back to school, but then had to have some kids come back out and having those conversations, because there's additional stressors involved with that piece too. And so being able to have those conversations and then share that information with families and staff might be really helpful. And I'm totally happy to, as you know, I've been involved in a lot of this stuff since July. When did we start the deed stuff? So I'd be happy to be on a working group on any of this.
That was May, Shelley. Yeah. Yeah.
And then the echoes were going to stop in October, but they're not stopping till maybe March, maybe not.
That's a good thing.
Yes.
Okay. So what I'd like to do is continue with the principal's report and then maybe open this up for discussion so that everyone can have a chance to share how they feel or what their opinion is about starting up at the beginning of a quarter versus starting up when it's the most or the earliest time we possibly can. Are we good with that? Okay. All right. So the next, let's make sure I've got this. The next part of my report is the budget, and this is again something that is an action item later on in the agenda. So our 2021 budget, which we are currently in, which was approved last December, has just been updated with a couple of things. We got some extra money from the hold harmless clause, which is when you have a drop in your enrollment that's greater than 5%, then the state gives back an additional amount for your adjusted daily membership of the number of students that you have. We also received funds from the CARES Act. No, this is not news to you. You've heard all of this before, but some of those funds went to paying for our nurse for her FTE to increase and also for her insurance. And so those and this last little bit that's information, new information to you will help. So these are all pluses. These are all things going into our unallocated funds. This third one is a reimbursement for a teacher. I discovered that our former Spanish teacher, who was 0.25 FTE at Highland and 0.75 at Hanshu, when she moved to full-time at Hanshu, there was a change in her payroll code was not made. So we have been paying for her for 2 years for 0.25 of her salary. And this was a good reminder to me that I need to be scrutinizing our budget a lot more closely. And this is definitely an opportunity for improvement for me as the principal. And I'm working with other charter schools who have business managers to help me understand the budgeting process and the reports and how to find them and what to look for a little bit better. So when I brought it up, the OMB and payroll and HR all worked together and will be reimbursing us for her time. So that's fabulous. So that's all good, even though it was initially like jaw dropping, like what? How did this happen? It turned out to be a little bit of a savings account that we didn't know we had. So we've got money coming in for that. As you know, last year, a big change was made in the funding formula for related services like our school psychologist and the department chair for SPED. So charter schools go in on those together now, and that comes directly out of our budget. So money was taken out to pay for related services. We had a 25 student drop from what we had originally budgeted. For this school year, we budgeted 195 and our final OASIS count was 169.75. So it's actually a 25.25 student drop. And so that money has been taken out of our unallocated funds. And that was a big hit. So what this all means is with those 3 pluses and the 2 minuses, the overall loss, and this is an approximation because it hasn't happened yet, so I don't know the final numbers, will be a loss of about $25,000 from our unallocated funds, our rainy day fund. And not only did we get this information, but the new information about our budget, our 21-22 budget is due in December. And so what I need from the board is some guidance on what our student projection should be. If we project 180 students, we will be able to cover all of our current staffing and our lease, but we won't have much left over for addenda, for teaching materials and and all of the other things. So this is just with the bare bones. This is the bare minimum of what we need to get by without tapping into our unallocated funds. If we project 190, then we could have our current staff. We could include the 0.4 counselor. We could cover all of the bare minimum that we need to have to open our doors. And then we'd have an additional $100,000 to wiggle room, essentially. Now, of course, that is only determined in October. So that amount that we would have, if we were at 190 in October of 21, then we would be given that an additional $100,000 to our unallocated budget in, I think, January or February of the following year. And if we don't reach 190 and we project 190, then we will owe the district back. John has a question.
Yeah. I see advantages and disadvantages, obviously, whichever way you go. But the question I have is, which is easier, which provides you the most flexibility to deal with the reality that you're going to be encountering in August? Is it better to aim high and throttle back as far as flexibility, or is it better to aim low and then ramp up?
I think that we need to start with the bare minimum. So that's why I gave you 180, because to teach 7 different grade levels, 4 content areas with electives, we are at our bare bones. There really is. I mean, it'd be great to have another staff member, but we are maxed out in terms of what this number of staff, even with the magnitude of greatness that this staff brings to the table, we need at least 180 students. We started the year with 205. We were 10 over. And I certainly did not anticipate dropping as much as we dropped. So I can't really answer your question, John, because I have no idea what August will bring. I feel like the students that are at our school and the families that are at Highland are happy at Highland and are really glad that they have found Highland. So I don't think our projected transfer out rate is about 8%. This year it was higher than that, but if I'm thinking that next year is going to be a regular, normal, typical year, then I would project an 8% loss. And so what that would mean then is, and we're graduating 25 students. So our average lottery is 65 to 75. So to answer the best answer I have for you, John, is somewhere between 180 and 190. And I've seen, Dr. Shapiro do both. I saw him overestimate a couple of years, and then he said, okay, we're going to underestimate. And what it means when you underestimate is you've got to cut staff, because the timing of that has to coincide with the AEA agreements. So, and of course that is in March and April when we're doing the budget in December, and then we don't know.
I guess that's kind of why I was asking you which turns out to give you the best flexibility. And it sounds like underestimating is a little harder, but it works out better in the long run. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah, I mean, underestimating in terms of like our bare bones. So I wouldn't go under 180 because we would have to cut staff for that or cut FTE.
Honestly, with the volatility of this pandemic, such as it is, I don't think you'd be wrong in being conservative.
Shelley,
thank you. That's all I had.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, John.
And do we have, I thought you said we had 169.75 students. I know that numbers sometimes do weird things, but do we have 100 170 students or 169 students? What do we have?
I think that comes out of KTH. We've got a couple of students going to King Tech part-time.
Gotcha. So our total though right now is
You can say 170.
170. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, and I would say this. I don't quote me on this. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I would say of those who left, because we're looking at 35 students who left, I would say easily 20 of those left the district for a homeschool program, or maybe not left the district, but left for a homeschool program.
What it sounds like now then is, because of what we've got going, the homeschool program, we're doing part of a homeschool program, and then part of it an in-person program where the kids can, the families can choose. Would that continue into next year? You know,
Alex,
I mean,
I haven't started thinking about next year.
Huh?
I haven't gotten there yet.
Okay.
I'm taking it a quarter at a time. No, we're taking it a day at a time because things have been changing so much. So I'm not sure what to expect for next year. But it very easily could. I mean, there's definitely the option there. And you know, Miss Crosby and I have joked a couple of times that this is Ginger Blackman's dream come true. She pushed us to get to a blended learning model where students could truly work anywhere, from anywhere, anytime that was convenient for them. And here we are living in that. That's our reality right now. So I'm not sure about next year, John or Alex. Laura's got her hand up, and I don't know if Shelly still has hers up or has it up again. Okay. Laura and then Shelly.
I'm just curious, what was our increase in sixth grade enrollment this year? Do you know?
Yeah, it was low. We were afraid. We actually were cutting people off because it was up to 30 and only 12. We only have 12 now.
So
that was our biggest group did not come.
Makes sense.
So the lottery was at 30 and you were turning people away and then they didn't come?
It was at 28 and we were thinking we were going to need to, because that's a big advisory. Most of our advisories are right about 20. So we were thinking about the only way to do it would be to have a second sixth grade advisory, and we didn't have the employees to do that. So we were at, it was up there. It was 27 or 28.
So, but it makes sense that sixth grader, like that's a transitional year. It makes sense that it wouldn't want to start a new school year at a new school online. So
Correct.
totally makes sense.
Any other time that probably would have stuck. So you'd be in a different situation. It's one of the things I was going to bring up. You know, a lot of that down was, you know, due to this, I think in part due to this current situation that we're in. But I would be, I mean, I guess knowing what we know, and we don't know we don't have a crystal ball, but you know, thinking outside the box on that low grade. I mean, I mean, part of me wants to say 190, but I think for safety reasons, I think 180 is probably the wiser decision. But I also think, you know, when lottery comes around again, thinking outside the box of if we've got, because we don't know where we're going to be, but if we end up getting a lot of sixth graders again in the lottery, thinking outside box for how can we make it work, you know?
Yeah, and you know, we don't have to stick to an even number. We could do 182 or 180.
Mhm.
That isn't the number.
Yeah.
185.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're going to have a lot more information at the time of the lottery. Unfortunately, you might have to make a decision before then, huh?
Yeah. That's
The lottery doesn't start until I think it opens in January. And then
What can you do?
That's right. It's how government works. Money before knowledge.
So So as long as I feel like as long as we're starting with our program needs and we know what our programmatic needs are, and then we can start with that and then see, you know, if we have to do, then, and Alex and I actually did need to increase a little bit last year to allow for that counselor. So, and Alex, do you remember that we met? There was a
Yeah.
lock-in going on. It was like December
Sure do.
19th at 10 p.m. or something weird. Yeah. And so we did adjust that just a little bit, just in order to get everything in that we wanted to get in. So, you know, we could say 185, split it down the middle. Or if you want me to project 180, I can try to make that work too.
I was actually thinking the 185.
So I'm curious, the families that left, 20 of them went to homeschool. The other ones may have gone other various places. I know from the homeschools that I'm working with right now that they're not operating the way they normally, many of them are not operating the way they normally do because they are totally overloaded. I've talked to homeschools that have, they've taken more students than they actually even, that they passed their max. And so they're not working directly with the students and teaching them the way that they often would. They're literally saying, here's some options, go. Which
Wow.
isn't necessarily what a lot of the families who are like, oh, well, we want teachers who have been doing this. And they didn't quite get that. Now that's not, maybe not the case with every homeschool, but from at least some of the homeschool educators that I've talked with, that seems to be the case, which leaves me to question, are those families getting what they thought they were getting? Are our families might be actually getting more of what those families thought they were getting, that direct interaction with the teacher, that one-on-one classroom experience. I'm wondering if we might be able to reach out and survey those families and find out how's your year going. We're hoping to work with you. We know it's an unusual year, and find out if they had plans or consider coming back. Let them know what we're doing. That might be helpful information as we look towards this, obviously, and then, you know, with our marketing and those other elements, that could be helpful. And it makes sense definitely with those early families for sixth graders, because everything was going to be new for them. And that's a scary time. And then to have this, it's like a whole other thing.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, something, Shelley, building on that, what you were saying, I was kind of wondering the same thing. I ran into a teacher the other day. She'd been working at Family Partnership back in the day when I was principal over there. And they went from 700 students to 1,700 students right now. And I'm going, that, you know, that's probably unrealistic, because, you know, it's like the pool has changed. And I'm wondering what Shelley is saying, if maybe we can attract back a portion of those students that we've lost to the quote homeschool programs that's out there.
Those are both good points. And it occurs to me that the best way to try to attract them is to maybe try to open a conversation with Daryl and the homeschool charters and Highland, and see if we shouldn't try to do this on our own. We should try to do this systemically with ASD to see if we can help with the load that parents might have thought was the best choice, but with the flooded home, the homeschool system is like an ICU unit in a hospital. When it's overtaxed, it loses its efficiency, and that's kind of where we are right now with this pandemic. And so I think this is a great idea, but I think it needs a dialogue between the homeschool charters, Highland, maybe Daryl moderating. Daryl, are you still here? What do you think of that?
Mhm.
I'm here, John. How are you?
I'm great.
Good. So a couple things to your point. That is certainly something Principal Johnson can do with the others. So the Anchorage School District, as you know, has 3 correspondence schools. 2 of them are charters, Family and Frontier, and Anchorage Paideia is part of the Anchorage School District now, not a charter, but still a statewide correspondence school. Family and Frontier, actually, we capped them because they're charters. We did allow them to grow, but we did cap them. So I think for those schools, even though they doubled in their capacity, they're operating pretty comfortably, although I can't speak for other parents. But to Shelley's point, I have heard that on some of the other statewide correspondence schools, such as IDEA, Raven, where they have taken so many kids, they are not providing the supports and services. So to summarize, I think Amy, Principal Johnson, can certainly talk to the 3 charter or correspondence principals, and I'd be happy to facilitate. But bigger, we, the Anchorage School District, would love to win back our ASD kids who have gone to these statewide correspondence schools, IDEA, Raven, CyberLink. So there's 6 of them that have offices here in Anchorage that we compete with. So I think back to Shelley's point, an outreach to those families that left, check in and see how it's going and say, we'd love to have you back. I know Roca is meeting tonight and they've lost 100 students. So this isn't bad. I mean, when you look at how the number of students who have left the Anchorage School District, your numbers aren't horrible. But Roca is looking at, and they're an immersion school, right? But they're looking at developing a system where families can come back to the school next year, go through the lottery, but as a hardship, they had to leave because of COVID and their families just couldn't support that school, but they're going to my understanding is the APC is going to vote on it tonight, and I'm assuming it passes, that they would take these kids back through the lottery, but as a hardship and taking them back into the school. So again, yes. So good idea, both of you.
Yeah, that was awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And I have a pretty good relationship with both Jessica and Jerry, the principals at the 2 charter schools. So, and a big part of that is thanks to Daryl for bringing us all together as charter principals on a regular basis.
And I know one of their goals next year is to get these kids that left ASD, went to IDEA and the other ones, and like homeschool, and we want to get them back in to the Anchorage School District. So really,
I would be more than willing to help with that, Daryl and Amy. I would be more than willing to help with creating some sort of bridging so that we can serve these kids better. Not playing a poaching game, but playing a how do you serve the kids better game. And I think Highland, and I actually think Paideia, I think Highland and Paideia offer unique possibilities that would allow us to bring a lot of those ASD kids back. And I'm enthusiastic about helping with it. So just let me know how I can do that.
Thanks, John.
Excellent.
Yeah, and I think when I talked to IDEA, it's been a while, but I feel like they said that she normally had about 500 some students, and it's been a while, so my numbers could be off, but I don't know if it was 1,000 or 3,000, but they were like maxed out, and she's like, and we're still taking 2 more that really needed in. So there's a lot
family could have added 3 times as much. We set them because they're a charter. We set the cap. No, you can go to 15. They were supposed to go to 1,500. They went 1,600. But so yeah, they could have doubled that probably. People were just looking for options.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is my son. One of those 1,600. Todd, you have your hand up.
Yeah, my question goes back to the projection numbers. I understand that if our OASIS comes below what our projection is, there's a payback. Is
Yes.
there a supplement if our OASIS comes back above the projection?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, and that's I get a number every year based on the number that we project, a certain amount from the base student allocation and the local contributions, and it's all figured out. So then they just multiply that by the extra number of students.
But the catch is
looking forward to that this year.
But the catch is that that extra money doesn't come till January. So by that time, it's kind of too late to add staffing and stuff, right?
Correct.
Yeah, that's the catch. What a great system.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, ideally, we're planning for staffing in March and April, long before the OASIS count. So, yeah. Okay. Is there any other, I mean, we'll have a chance to talk about this again because like I said, it's an action item on the agenda, but if there are any other questions, now is a good time to ask those questions, or we can move on to the next item on the report. Okay. So the next item on the report is we have 2 interested student members. One of them is here tonight and the other one I bet is here tonight. They both have parents who are on the board. Robert Morgan is in 10th grade. He's been at Highland since 6th grade. And Ava is in 7th grade and she's also been here since 6th grade. So we do have 1 seat available. And I know in the past we've talked about how great it would be to have a middle school student on the board. And then also maybe we should only have high school because of the level of information and maturity. And this is nothing against Ava, she's very mature. But these are 2 interested student members. And so I wanted to let you know that we've got some interest and also get some guidance on our next steps in terms of like, do we want to have them go through the application process since we've got 2 and only 1 seat.
So Robert has been a part of, oh, go ahead, John.
I was going to say, I certainly am encouraged that we have 2 applicants for 1 position. I think the application process is a good one, but I'd kind of like to hear from both of them right now as to why they're applying for the position. That would help me a lot.
We can ask, but I want Robert and Ava to know that I haven't set them up for that. So
Oh, okay. Well, I'm not asking for any, like performance. I just want to talk to them.
Maybe how about this? How about if we have a we could plan that for the December meeting. We could also call a special meeting to review their interests and
yeah, no, I'm not trying to make more work for anybody. I was just, they were here, so I thought I'd let them talk a couple of seconds.
Okay, well, let me scroll through. Robert, are you interested in sharing your intent?
Noah?
Yeah, sure. There's a
Let
garbage
me mute.
disposal going on in the background though. Yeah, I just think it's a really great experience, an opportunity, not only just for, myself in the future, but also to help contribute to, the school I go to and help provide some input since I've been going here for quite a long time. And I'd like to think I know a fair bit about it. But yeah.
Cool. Thank you for sharing.
Thanks very much.
And Ulf, I don't know if you've got Ava there or not, but
No, I don't have Ava here. She is
okay.
with her mom this week.
All right. I'm sorry, I did not prepare her for this. So so I wanted the board to know that we've got 2 interested student members, and maybe maybe Alex and Laura and I can work on maybe a process for bringing this to the December board meeting. For
Awesome. That's great.
okay.
I was just gonna say, I don't know that we have a meeting scheduled for December because of holiday, or did we move it?
Well, that was that's our last item.
Oh, good question.
Well,
Yeah.
whether we have one in December or not, I know we have one in January. So my thinking is, and we can talk about it, but have them turn in their paper, the application ahead of time. And then that way we'll have that so that we can efficiently make a decision.
Okay. Yeah, so looking at the calendar, the third Thursday is the 17th, which is the last teaching and learning day of the semester. And we had talked about doing these board meetings every month was the latest decision. So we can talk about whether we do December 10th, the 17th, or just move it to January.
Okay, got it. Yeah, because you had sent all those links out but not for one. So that was probably because we hadn't decided yet. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so this is just a reminder of what our APC goals are, what categories. They were in student progress, family, community involvement, and committee work. And we will get back to those once we get back on track with the agenda. Oops, this is the wrong, no, am I showing the agenda? Or am I showing the, here we go.
It looks zoomed in. There you go.
Okay, good. Okay. So sorry about that, Alex. As usual, the principal's report blended into section 6.
No problem. Okay.
Quite a bit.
That was what I was going to ask. Do we need an official, any kind of motion for item 6, student members? Since it's.
I think so, because our bylaws say that new members are voted in August. So it would be my recommendation, if there is a motion, to discuss this at our next board meeting or have a vote at our next board meeting. But
I move that we discuss and possibly select a student board member at our next meeting.
Here we have a motion
Seconded.
on the floor. Do we have a second? Second?
Second that.
Okay. No discussion then, I guess we could put it. Is there any discussion? Or did I hear? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of John, repeat how you put it.
That we, oh geez, now I got to remember that. That we select, that we discuss and possibly select a student board member at our next meeting after Amy goes through whatever application process with all applicants interested. That's
Okay,
a lot of words. I'm sorry.
That sounds good. And then we got a second to it. Any more discussion on it? Or did someone call the question? I heard something, but I wasn't sure.
Thank you for your interest, Robert.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, yeah. All those in favor of the motion as John stated it, say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. The ayes have it then. Okay. We've got that taken care of, so we move on to the next item.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
Did we also need a motion regarding the start date? Do we need a motion regarding starting only on the quarter? And we probably don't need a motion to set up any kind of working group to discuss. But it sounded like Amy was hoping that there was a motion to for that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Do you want us just to advise, or do you want us to move, Amy?
Well, I was hoping to move one way or the other. I wanted to let you know what information I had and what my opinion was on the matter. I don't know that it has to be done tonight because you're right, it's not here in number 6 and either should have been or I don't know if it needs to be.
That's no problem. You give us a month to think about it. We can, I think you're right. It doesn't have to be decided tonight, but now that I have a whole month to think about it, I'm grateful that you brought it up.
Definitely.
And my one concern was we should not start until at least 2 weeks after the holiday.
Mhm.
So we're easily going to do that. So that was my only concern. Is everybody coming back from holidays and then all of a sudden going back to school? I didn't want us doing that.
And after hearing the idea of like what if we just could start anytime in the quarter, but whenever it was decided to start, there was going to be a 1 week asynchronous learning where teachers get into the school and get set up and students start making their home transition, families start making the transition, and everybody has like a week to be like, okay, we're learning asynchronously, we have stuff to do, but we're all getting prepared to go back. That's appealing to me, and I didn't think about that until now. So I liked that idea.
I think that's cool too.
Okay.
Annie's got her hand up.
I just wanted to clarify then that the discussion will be whether or not students go back at the beginning of the third quarter, depending what's happening with the COVID crisis, or stretching that out all the way to fourth quarter, or what I just heard right now is at least giving teachers a week's worth of a heads up. I just wanted a clarification.
Yeah, so what we know right now is that secondary is not starting on January 4th. There is a chance that they will not start until March 22nd. But they also might decide, okay, things are looking good. Things in the muni are good. Like Brenda mentioned, travel's over, things are stabilizing. Let's go back in mid-February. So if ASD did that, then we could just follow suit and do that as well. Or we could say, no, we're not going to start mid-quarter. But like Megan, I hadn't considered, we did consider that soft start in January, but I hadn't thought about what that would look like if we started mid-quarter to do something like that.
Thank you.
Can I say one thought, Amy?
Mm-hmm.
Highland has always talked about the fact that we're not based on seat time. We're based on standards and flexibility and meeting the student where they are. What occurs to me is that this is the perfect opportunity. The restart scenario is the perfect opportunity for Highland to illustrate why a standards-based proficiency system is so much more flexible. And over the next month, before our next meeting, I think it's really interesting to entertain the possibility that this is a chance for Highland to stand out and distinguish itself, not only in ASD, but in Alaska, with how you address the educational needs of all the different kinds of students. And if we do something that shows creativity and flexibility, it may have really large long-term results in how the school develops. So I just want to plant that seed over the next month till we meet again.
Very
Of
well.
course, the other thing that's rumoring around the medical community is hopefully by sometime in December, we'll also have a vaccine. So we'll see.
That won't be available for students, however. So the first vaccines will go towards the critical workers and likely educators who are critical workers. But only one of the two companies has even begun trial on youth. So the other one is just about to start those trials on young children or young adults. So that part wouldn't be for quite some time, as well as the general public. One other thought, as we're talking about the possibility of a quarterly type of start, or a start where educators would come in and kind of get going. And then Amy, you mentioned maybe 6th grade starting, and then maybe 7th grade, and then, right, and kind of slowly, so which if we were looking at something like that, it would seem to me that maybe one day isn't enough. If you bring in one group, maybe give that 2-week window to see if there's any cases that crop up in that time period before bringing in the next set. And even though that doesn't fit within a quarterly clean start for each group, it could potentially be a cleaner, safer way to monitor as students come into the building, as educators come in, and then students.
Mhm. Okay. Maybe would it be appropriate for me to suggest a special meeting on reentry, and either to form a committee now for that, or just to invite all board members, and if you'd like to be on the committee, come to the meeting? Is that something that that I can ask for?
My only concern is that it be in keeping with Open Meeting Act, that the agenda, if that's an action item that the board is going to set policy with, be published with enough time for the public to digest it and participate in public comment if they choose so. So
Sure.
we have to give our stakeholders that opportunity.
Piggybacking on that, I think if you have a open meeting invitation and invite all board members, and then at the end of that meeting, carry it forward as a working group with board members and community, it's simple and easy, and I know I'll be there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it would start as the meeting to talk about it, and then resolve at the end into a working group.
I think that's the easiest way.
And maybe we should consider doing that for December instead of our regular meeting.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. And then that gives us the time in the December meeting to also take care of the other business.
Well, I'm hearing two things. If we have a special meeting, that's basically a stakeholder meeting, that's not a board meeting. So, and not to be a stickler, but it's 7:15. And so I think we're going to need a board meeting only because we still have to work on our goals.
So could that be a standard board meeting where the public are always invited, and then we also end with the decision to turn it into a working group anyway? And so it's all public at the same time.
That works.
Or you could start it a half an hour early or a half an hour late as a stakeholder meeting, and then go straight into the board meeting and let everybody trickle out after the stakeholder meeting. But you can call a special meeting on either end of the board meeting where you have much larger participation.
And that gets at our desire to bring more community, family involvement and student involvement.
Absolutely.
Okay. Then I would propose December 10th for that, since it's the 17th, I think, is too late. And the 3rd is too late.
Then we don't have 2 back-to-back meetings, so thank you.
I move that we adopt September or December 10th as our next board meeting, and that we try to schedule a stakeholder meeting on the special topic either before or after that.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. for scheduling our meeting for 12:10. Do we have a second to the motion?
I'll
Second.
second that.
We got a second to the motion. Any other discussion on it? Hearing none, we'll move forward. All of those in favor of scheduling 12:10 for our next meeting, say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Okay, so we got 12:10. We will have our next meeting on 12:10.
Okay, sorry, Secretary was multitasking. Who moved and seconded?
John moved.
And I seconded.
Right.
Thank you.
Shelley.
And this is gonna be a regular full board meeting, not a special meeting. Cool.
Yeah, it's a regular full board meeting, but I'm going to suggest that if Amy thinks it's a good idea and the staff thinks it's a good idea, that we piggyback a stakeholder focused topic meeting either just before that or just after that. I'd say just before. I think that's going to be the predicted time.
We
Yeah,
did
I
that
would
for a
suggest
PTSO
before.
meeting on this COVID topic and school start, and it worked out really nicely. We had a really good turnout. And then we were able to shift into the meeting, and a lot of folks stayed. And that way we could answer additional questions at the end, or they could talk more at the end, but they didn't necessarily need to stay if they didn't want to.
So if I'm hearing it correctly, instead of a 6 o'clock start, we do a 5 o'clock start?
What we would do
I would
is
say
like
5:30.
5:30.
Yeah, a
Okay.
5:30 questions and answer period where hopefully by then our plan will be published on the website, and then families can have access, full access to that. So they can go through that and then write their questions down. And then I'll go through the similar process where I ask people to email their questions ahead of time. And then we compile a list of answers with those questions as we're going, so that if people join late, if they have a question that's already been asked, they can see the question and the answer. So
That's excellent.
Yeah.
You got a FAQ after it's all over. That's excellent.
Yeah. So we'll host that at 5:30 and then a regular board meeting at 6 o'clock, and encourage folks to stay on. And then the agenda would be the reentry plan and new student members, and then our working groups. And
Laura,
probably-
does that seem workable there? Okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, great. All right.
Okay. So I think we're on 6B now.
Okay, yeah, the budget, yeah, okay. I didn't have that on my version of the agenda, but I see it now. Okay, so we move to 6B, the budget.
So the big thing with the budget is we need to make a motion how many kids we're wanting to do. So I make a motion that we go with the 185 kids, just split the middle.
I second that.
We have
This
a
is John.
motion on the floor. We have a second on it. Any further discussion on the motion?
I have discussion. So this is due when? December 15th?
By the end of the semester. is
By the
when I
end
need
of the
to
semester.
have it
Okay,
signed by-
so we'll have our other meeting before, is that correct?
Mhm.
So I'm curious if it's possible for you to reach out to those families beforehand, before we do this, so that we could have a little bit more information about whether those families think that there's a likelihood, a strong likelihood, a maybe likelihood, or a not at all likelihood to return to Highland next year. And that might be really helpful information. You know, we all know what we can do with marketing because we've been doing awesome with that. And we can keep getting creative with that, but knowing if some of them might want to come back, and then maybe those other conversations could help us to make a more educated decision if we are able to postpone it until the December meeting.
Mhm.
or
Yeah,
in an
we-
executive session of that. If I don't know if that's, well, that's public information, then it doesn't have to be, right? So,
Yeah, I've got access to their contact information, so I can definitely email and call and see if I can reach out to those families.
Seems like a great student project for communications and community building. If you need any help.
Todd, you got your hand up.
I think you got a volunteer there, John.
My addition to that discussion would be I would prefer to give Amy guidance now, and at the December meeting, if there's something that comes up that would change our decision, that we've got the decision made right now, and we can move forward and kind of put that one to bed.
Yeah, I'd echo that.
I
Well,
agree
the
too.
5 is the guidance for now, right? And that's a motion on the floor that we haven't voted on, correct?
Correct.
Right. Okay, then we need to vote on the motion, right? Could we repeat that motion again?
Brenda
That
moved
we,
for
sorry,
100
go ahead.
student projection.
can you repeat that?
Brenda moved that we approve a 185 student body projection.
Okay, we got the motion and 185 students. And we got a second on that too. John, you second it?
Yes.
Okay, any further discussion on it? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. The ayes have it, so 185 is our projected number at this point.
Right, thank you so much.
Okay.
I will get working on that budget and also reaching out to families.
Awesome.
Okay. So now we can move to item C, APC goals, strategy, and action.
And this is where I will stop sharing and Laura, you will be a co-host in 2 seconds. 1, 2.
So I am looking at our time. What I'm going to propose to the board, and feel free to push back on this, is that I'm going to project a goals sheet. And all I did was copy paste all of the work we did last time as far as the draft goals, and look at those. We could pop into breakouts, but I don't know that we'll have very much time. But I'm suggesting that we look at the draft goals that we have at this point. If you recall, we did feedback on the goals, but we did not have time to go back into our work groups. So every group has received feedback from other people on the board, but that is as far as we got. So is everyone okay if I move forward with projecting kind of the all-in-one draft and we
Yes.
check
Yes.
those out? Okie doke. And then what I would suggest, this is in that working folder that we, if you haven't gotten a chance to reacquaint yourself with the goals and even the feedback, particularly because again, we ran out of time, I would say to make some minutes before the next make time before the next meeting to become familiar with them. So this doesn't include the feedback. This is just the goal statements. Can everybody see that okay?
Looks good.
Yeah.
Right on. And I put this in our working folder. And what I'll do before we're out of here is I'll drop actually, if somebody else has the folder handy, if you could drop the link, otherwise I'll do it towards the end. Everybody, just let me know if you need the link, I guess, because this is the same folder we've been working out of. So we have 3 areas we're working on. Of course, this can continue beyond just this school year, but at this point we are working on family involvement, which that got brought up tonight. So that's awesome. And that current group has come up with 3 draft goals there. The only modification I've done to the statements is just for consistency is I've tried to start with Highlands APC will.
Okay.
It wasn't on all the goal statements. So you can see there's 3 goals there. A lot of the feedback on the goals has more to strategy or actions that we might take. Thanks, Megan, as opposed to having concerns about the goal themselves. There is some feedback on some of the goals about the goals, but most of it had to do with actions and questions. So this is really talking about bumping up our relationship with families and trying to come up with ways to have more family involvement. One of which, looking at how can we offer job shadows, doing some work sessions. And then the other one is talking about recruitment, which I feel like we've always had some kind of pseudo recruitment goal. So that's good. As you're looking at these family involvement goals, are there any clarifying questions about them? Performance. We have 2 draft goals proposed. One is about aligning the principal evaluation to Highland School Vision. Now, just to clarify, because there were questions in the feedback there, Amy has an evaluation process that she goes through with the district. It would not replace that process. This was more about having her report, more so a reflection, if you will, about Highland's vision and how she feels about where we're at on that. So it's not going to, I mean, obviously she should get feedback from the district and she should have that evaluation, but us as the board speaking to that, we've always been challenged by that. So that's kind of where that goal's coming from. The other one is asking about student performance. There were some comments on the feedback that, is that a goal for the board? I mean, we're asking Amy to give us more information. But that doesn't really, and the feedback's spot on, right? It doesn't really suggest that that's anything the board is doing about measuring student progress. So that small group, working group, would probably want to work on that goal. And for example, I thought of, that's right. What of it is it that we're going to build our clarity? Is it going to be that we can articulate our student performance as a result of what Amy brings to the table? So any clarifying questions about those 2 draft goals? And if I'm going too fast, just tell me to slow down.
Now you're doing good.
Okay, and then the last document, or I'm sorry, the last goal area is committee protocols and productivity. Feedback on this, wanting some kind of the histogram, right? So we got a lot of new board members. I think one of the strategies might be, for example, to do an audit. Like, what have we done in the past? Get out the old binders, talk about what's worked, what hasn't worked. But so there was a lot of feedback around that, like what happened before, what have we tried? So thought that was fair. So there's one talking about getting consistent procedures in place. So kind of like I think of it like a playbook, if you will, a committee playbook. Like, what are the templates we're going to have? What are the protocols we're going to follow? And then I think as a result of that, that leads into that second goal to, again, increase our capacity to use collaborative tools, whatever those might be that working group decides that we come to consensus around. So that one's kind of more of a, I don't know, a sequencing or a scaffolding, if you will, between the 2 goals.
I've got some additional thoughts on that, because it's really like teaching and learning for groups, and it kind of ties in with some of the thinking I've been doing. So I'm very interested in, now that we're at this particular point, sharing some ideas with the people that are working in that work group, and to me, it's about how do you build capacity to problem solve as groups. So it's more than just one thing. It's like it's an inquiry direction that not only helps us as a board, but also impacts teaching and learning throughout all of Highland Academy. And so I'm interested in now that my life is settling down, really digging in on this one and helping maybe push us a little farther than we were originally thinking. So I'll just stop it there.
Nice. Thanks, John. Yeah, and I would agree. This could be a systemic piece that you could see all levels of the organization using using those tools that group would come up with. Okay, so any clarifying questions or other add-ons to that third chunk?
Sounding good.
Okay, so what I'm going to suggest, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. What I'm going to suggest is that everyone has the folder, and I'm thinking most of us remember which group we were on. Doesn't matter which group you're on. I think people can move around, and I think it's important that we are all familiar with all of the feedback. So between now and our next meeting, review the feedback, because what we're going to do first is look at the feedback. Do we need to make any adjustments? But also the feedback will help us write our action steps. So I think it'll go fairly quickly because everybody already has pretty good ideas. It's like boom, boom, boom. And then the last thing will be, what's the look for? What's the metric? How do we know we made it? We were successful on the goal. So we should be ready to rock and roll on those officially. We're already kind of starting them, but for second semester. Can't believe I just said second semester. January. I'll never leave my blood.
Semester.
Any questions, concerns, other ideas on that?
Sounding good, Lauren. Another job well done.
All right. Thanks, everyone. And if you have issues with the folder or we need to add more folks to it, maybe.
Can you pop that in the chat if you didn't? Or there it is. Never mind. Megan already did it.
And I'm not saying we have to use Google. It was just so many documents. It was kind of the easiest way.
Awesome.
All right.
So sorry, so based on that feedback, if we go back in and have other ideas on how to improve that, we can make comments in there and start. Okay.
Yes, please. Yeah. Yeah, there's 3 templates. Each goal has its own template in there that we were working off before, and the feedback protocol is at the bottom. You'll see people have typed in there. I think we did win, wonder, suggest.
Yeah,
I think.
perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Great. All right. I think that's it then for now on that.
Awesome.
Thank y'all.
So before we close tonight, I just wanted to give a shout out to all of you who made it to the Open Meetings Act training that we had a few weeks ago. That was really great.
Awesome.
And then Jurassic Parliament, is that what it's called? Jurassic Parliament. Yeah, I looked up some webinars, and there's one coming up on December 3rd for taking minutes. And just every couple of weeks, they've got really great webinars. I did one today and learned a lot in just a quick hour, but it was jam-packed full of information. So I will send out a link to their website so that you can jump in on some of those opportunities too. A lot of them are free. Some of them you need to pay for, but there's all kinds of information. And I've got 3 new books I need to buy as a result of that training today. So I'm looking forward to those.
Well, you can put those books on your wish list for the barn. Oh, which everybody should know. We have our Barnes and Noble book fair for Highland coming up on November 27th through, Brenda, what is it? Through January, is it the 3rd? I don't know. I have to look on here. Through December 3rd. So the 27th through December 3rd, we'll send stuff out. But Amy, you can put those books on your wish list, and maybe some parents and partners of Highland will buy them.
Just
I
for
can see
you.
if I can wait that long. I'll see. Yeah.
Okay, then. It looks like what we've reached the end of our meeting then. Did anyone else have anything else they wanted to bring up? Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Brenda's made a
Second.
motion to adjourn. Do we have a second? I think I heard it. Okay, we got a second there. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. No naysayers, so